In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Everybody's been laid off. None of these people are real. They're all holograms. Coffee shops, they're laying people off left and right. I know, right? Yep. Just going to serve our coffee. Mr. Coffee. It's just going to be one big pot.
Mr. Coffee.
That's right.
I'm glad that this place hasn't shut down because of the government shutdown.
Well, no, I mean, I'm thinking Starbucks. Starbucks is going through some changes. They shut down one in our neighborhood just recently, a couple of weeks ago. It was a store that had been a traditional footprint store, a la the old model that Howard Schultz would talk about. Howard Schultz always said he wasn't selling coffee, he was selling camaraderie. He was selling, come on in and stay a while. And then, of course, after a while, and people were paying $10, for a Frappuccino, but they just wanted to pick it up and get the hell out of there. So
$40 later.
Yeah, so that store, after 20 years or so, was turned into a pickup-only location, and that happened less than a year ago. And they went through this big renovation. And then as soon as the store opened, I mean within days, because I remember I did the story for the local place I work for, the media outlet. Within days of then having this grand relaunch as this pickup-only Starbucks location in we kind of live in Twin Towns, so it's one of the towns we live in. The Brian Nichol took over as CEO and announced that they were going back to their old ways. No more stopping in and just grabbing and going. They want people to come on in again and stay a while. And that kind of left the store's recent makeover in limbo. And then they just decided to pull the fucking plug and fire everybody. And they fired 369 other, well, they will be in December, because we have this nifty thing in our state. Do you know about this? Where if they're going to lay off people and they know it's the law that they have to disclose it in advance. They don't have to say, if they're a corporation with multiple locations like Starbucks, they don't have to say at which stores. They don't have to specify which people or which positions, but they have to say that we are trimming the fat, and they have to give a number to the state auditor's office or to the state employment office, and then that office pushes it out to the public in paper form. And so, of course, all the news outlets latched onto that as soon as it was announced. I believe it's called the WARN list, workers, something. I don't know. But anyway, 369 more biting the dust in December. Baristas without pay.
Sirens without pay? Well, then how are people supposed to stay longer if they're pickup only?
Well, that's just it. So it had been a traditional come on in and stay a while store, plug in your laptop, do your taxes, study for school.
Use the Wi-Fi.
Take your practice exam for the real estate guild, whatever the fuck it is. Come on in and stay for 2 or 3 hours. I used to do that. I used to go in. I'd love to hang out at Starbucks, and I would unpack and stay and write or play online or do something for several hours. And mostly I think I was just interested in people watching because, I was alone at the time. I was freshly divorced and had no relationship. And a guy like me doesn't have a lot of close friends. So that was sort of like the thing to do. That was how I got out. And so God bless him for allowing you to come in and actually spend, what I spent, like $4, and then sit there for 3 hours with my headphones on and plugged in. Sure. And then Siren Lord took over.
Yeah.
Said, come on in and stay a while. No more pick up and go, Commander. You're coming in and fucking staying a while, because that's how the siren wants it.
So that was the new order, was just, this is how we're going to fix things, because profits started going down, and they said, we want you to come back. We don't feel like we're welcoming you as much. We've gotten away from the traditional model. We have a Starbucks in 2 other stores over there, grocery stores, and 2 standalone Starbucks. So the town still has 6 Starbucks locations. And we're talking about maybe 60,000 people in that entire footprint. So isn't that interesting that we have one Starbucks to serve every 10,000 people in our little Shangri-La here?
And I think the whole stay a while idea is nice on white paper, but when it goes to the streets and essentially what it becomes is a place for everybody who's unemployed to just kind of loiter, kind of like the public library, really. You know how many people just sit there and they order like water and then they sit there all day.
Yeah. Well, I think what's happening, first of all, they become just a behemoth. Again, 4, 1 on every corner of it. That's kind of overkill, even in the neck of the woods where the company hails from. And I also think that, quite honestly, people are waking up, and the new generation is also just, they're busy sorting it out, because I think Gen Z and Gen Alpha are both still not understanding just exactly how deep the corporate tendrils actually affix to things. I also think that they are fans of things that they shan't not be, because they are not only banal and insufferable in the opinion of one individualist, that being me, of course, but also they are hugely connected in very clandestine ways to the corporate world. But they're showing, where they can, they're showing their displeasure for something that is going out of fashion. And that is this mega giant behemoth. Let's put stores every single place that we possibly can and make so much money, and it's just run all the little guys out of business. So I know what's really popular in our town is Dutch Bros. Dutch Bros is really taking over a lot of the, and I honestly, I also think it's product, because those younger generations are also into getting high, man. And Starbucks isn't selling Red Bull shooters and all these other things. It's got 48 ounces of guarana in it, which will send you through the fucking moon and back. They're selling that at Dutch Bros, but they're not selling it at Starbucks. So I think it's twofold. I think, yes, there's a bit of an epiphany that's happening. Although, like I said, I don't think the younger generation quite understands how deep it runs, but they'll get there. And I appreciate that. I applaud that, of course. But then there's also just the product doesn't suit the times. Frappuccinos, they're nice, they're sweet, they're cloying, they're $11, but I got $11 burning a hole in my pocket. I want a drink. I want something that's literally going to send me into orbit for the next 6 hours. And I can, pair with a couple of Viagras, even though I'm 16 and don't need them, so I can stay hard until Tuesday. And it's Thursday night,
Oh, it's terrible. Well, I think
it's true,
there is kind of that marijuana head shop culture at Dutch Bros, isn't there?
Yes.
There's very much like the orange dragon is in many of the people's purview.
Well, it's a little bit of everything. It's like 1 part coffee, 1 part iced coffee, 1 part Italian soda, 1 part orange Julius, 1 part alcohol drink without the booze, of course, because they can't sell it to the minors. But it's truly like, okay, so this is Red Bull. This is Red Bull infused with chocolate sprinkles and white chocolate chips on whipped cream. It's just like, what the fuck is this thing? This is a tanker of just death, a tanker of cloying arterial death is what that is for me. So like I said, I think Starbucks is losing out. I think they're going to have to improve their product. And also Starbucks is, let's face it, things get old. Starbucks has become, like McDonald's, like Burger King. Yeah, they're still around. And yeah, they have thousands of locations and billions served worldwide in their, their edict stands, proud because of all the years they've been around, but they are seriously they are losing out to In-N-Out Burger, Chick-fil-A. there are new kids on the block, and that's the way it is. That's the way human expansion is, culturally speaking. Things run their course. They go out of vogue. And Starbucks, I think, is starting to see some of the end of the vapor trail. They're running out of gas, and it just happens.
Did you say
One of those
vape?
things.
Did you say vape?
Vape pens. I love that vape pen. Like
Oh my
the first time I heard
Don't
that,
get
like
me started on that.
vape pen. So what do you like signing? Like you carry it around and write with it too? So you smoke a little and then you write, you smoke a little. Like, no, man, it's just a pen you suck on and his vape comes out. I'm like, it's a vape pen. Okay. So,
well, your analogy of the Gen Z, I think, is one of those items that I wanted to touch on during our conversation today. Because, this isn't really a new thing. I think that corporate America has had sounding boards for new product ideas for a long time. I mean, this isn't a new idea, but corporate anxiety is being fueled with the creation of a new industry called Gen Z translators. And really what these are
I might say before you go on, I might say that corporate anxiety is one of the biggest oxymorons I've ever heard in my life. File it right next to military intelligence.
Okay.
And we're good.
Yeah.
Corporate anything corporate is anxietal to me. So, all right, carry on.
Well, corporations, I think this also ties in with our friends at the Siren Company as well. Corporate anxiety is really, I think it's a fear of missing out is what it is. They don't really understand maybe these new trends like the Tide Pod eating, which I think the people at Tide's marketing company probably could have had some fun with that idea. But, what it is it's this fear of missing out. And it's this, they're hiring these firms that are marketing firms that are essentially set up, and it's their job to help translate corporate messaging into language, ideas, products, and marketing that resonates with Gen Z, which, as I said before, I don't think this is anything new because I think that's why you hire a marketing company to begin with. But what it really, I think, drives down is that Gen Z is really going to be a generation that picks up a majority of the consumer girth as baby boomers start to decline.
So you think it skipped Gen X then, basically?
They're just saying that, I think what they're saying here is that there's a lot of things that are moving so quickly with technology, like the TikTok generation, and these are people who essentially are saying, hey, we're a marketing firm that we are ourselves members of this generation. And so then Gen Z is starting to come into their own when it comes to marketing ideas. And I think we saw this with Gen X as well. But I think when you and I were growing up there still tended to be a catering to the baby boomers as a large part of the economy. And that really drove, the traditional media that drove the messaging in advertising, that drove a lot of, the traditional ways that people were consuming information. Well, now they're kind of going, well, this up-and-coming generation doesn't do things that way anymore.
You can't ever make sweeping generalizations about absolutely everybody.
Well, that's what they're doing
on a demographic, but I think you can make a pretty good estimation that that's going to be the case because kids are born with, baby boomers were not born attached to phones with these little tiny, hand a 70-year-old a cell phone and then hand a 14-year-old a cell phone and you will see, I don't even care where they're going, let alone where they're going, what they're looking for, what their interests are.
Right.
Just the rate at which the device can be utilized the difference is remarkable. I am a index finger puncher inner on my phone when I text because I can't do this thumbs shit that, like
you can.
My girlfriend is late Gen Z and she can just fly with her thumbs.
Isn't that interesting?
thing in her hands.
You can pretty much tell what generation someone's in if you hand them an iPhone or a device and you ask them to type something in based on how they...
I mean, that's when the illusions of, I guess it's a good thing it doesn't span too many generations, because then people would know I'm not as young as I appear to be. So I think the technology that they're pushing and have been pushing so hard is kind of their Achilles heel in this case, because trends used to stay hot for much longer, long enough to allow tangible products that were based on those trends to come to market. And now it's such a rapid turnaround. I mean, it's just, one day, 1 week, it's this, and then the next week, nobody does it anymore. Now it's this is, and so you just can't tell a factory in China or wherever it's producing, whatever it's producing somewhere, hey, enough with the, C-3PO, nobody's into it. Now it's all about
R2-D2.
Right. So just make your switch. I mean, they can't do that anymore. And so I think they're kind of responsible for their own doom on this one, because by the time whatever it is reaches market, it's not the latest rage anymore. It's not the latest thing. They figured out about the time soccer finally became popular. I don't know when that was, 20 years ago or so, I guess, is when I turned on the TV and it was just like, in soccer news, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Nobody cares about soccer in this country. Oh, yes, they do. It's popular. Didn't you hear? No, it's not popular, and I'm not buying that, and I never will. And that's when I realized, okay, sadly, just like we can wake up to their bullshit, but it takes a lot longer, they have woken up to our bullshit. They have awakened to on the corporate side. And what they awakened to was, look, this whole thing where we give them a movie to suck on, or we give them a product to try, or we wait to see if they like it, to see if we can make and snare a few more million out of them. Those days are over. They don't decide what's popular. We tell them what's popular. That's the way this is going to work. And that's exactly the shift, the paradigm shift that happened with corporate America.
Well, and youth trends no longer emerge from just a small set of channels. They are culturally distributed. They're fast moving. Social media has changed that game. And Gen Z reacts to changes very quickly, yet the old model of manufacturing these products and essentially creating them does not move as fast as people consume them and then move on to the next thing. And I think the other big thing about this, and they point out, is that essentially globally, Gen Z is expected to grow in their spending power from 9.8 trillion to about 12.6 trillion in the next 5 years. And so...
Oh, as we all get raises?
Well, yeah.
Well, that's Gen Z. I'm sorry. I'm Gen X. I forgot. That's why I'm Gen X. I'm a big... Does Hanson get a raise? And there's a big
wait a minute.
No.
Mr. Smithers. But, the other thing that I was thinking of the other day is that, just think about how ubiquitous technology is. When I say the word technology, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Cell phone, typically, smartphone,
internet,
technology. I think the very first thing I go to is just anything that allows for rapid, instant communication,
information,
because that's information exchange, because that's exactly where, to me, the zenith of technology is right now. Yes, we've lived with and advanced upon other technologies, things that keep the icebox colder for longer at different variables, things that, can play with the temperature setting in your car, auto wipers that detect how much rain is falling, auto headlights, all that stuff. But it's all ancillary when it comes to what the nucleus of our tech world is the instantaneous exchange of information.
Yeah. And when you and I were growing up, there wasn't anything that was ubiquitous like that.
We had encyclopedias when I was
there was libraries.
If you wanted to know like what the approximate weight of a kinkajou was, you had to go look up in K and go K-I-N-K-J. Oh, look, look how sweet he is. Look, and you had to have the Britannica series, and you had to have K, and you had to be able to go in and look it up for yourself. Well, and I have a 27-year-old to my right in the newsroom every day at work who is a reporter at where I work. So to my backside is a 58-year-old, and then again directly to my right is the 27-year-old. And whenever you pose any question, it doesn't matter how ludicrous the question is just for the sake of horsing around, or how serious, pointed, and specific the question may seek information regarding, he has the answer from Chat GTP within seconds.
Isn't that
lined up?
the truth?
He is the fifth or sixth Gen Z person I have worked with who has that impulse, that reflex. Whenever a question is verbally uttered by someone in the surrounding vicinity, he possesses the answer.
Let's ask
by
ChatGPT.
querying Google or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's wonderful to a point. And I also feel like there is a drop off with that. I feel like there is okay, there's a measure of trust that we're giving technology that frightens me, because who controls what that answer is? Now, right now, tech seems to be very, it's pretty balanced. If you were to ask Chat GTP or Google AI a question that was clearly biased, racially, sexually, gender, whatever, one of these things, these startling things, we can all make the Macaulay Culkin face, Home Alone, I can't believe someone would ask that. It's going to spit out an answer that would seemingly be quite fair. It would say, look, it's basically not an appropriate question to ask because it leans to a total bias of gender or whatever it is. And so therefore you're kind of asking the wrong question. You're making a subjective statement instead of really asking a question. But at what point do the people that control that technology, and at what point are they doing it now, actually already, when you ask, I've heard about this new chocolate flavored Velveeta. What's that like? And instead of getting a very droll, mundane, chocolate flavored Velveeta is a product that's being rolled out by the Imperial Company, which is the subsidiary company of Heinz, which is a subsidiary company, and they got all these fucking, disguised,
Right.
That, is its traditional block of cheese, which is flavored like chocolate, and it's very straightforward. And instead, it's filled with a lot of zingy computer retort to get you interested in checking it out for $4.89.
Yeah. But no, I think we're kind of in this golden age of AI right now. And we've talked about this before too, where AI is so new and it's so fresh that people haven't had an opportunity to really corrupt it yet. And we're going to get to a point where AI is going to be exclusive, and there's going to be good AI versus bad AI. And the AI that you're talking about is really an AI that people are going to utilize for their own commercial gain, as opposed to something that's just open source. And I think the company that runs is it OpenAI? Recently tried to go private, and there was some blocking in the state of California because of that fear, where you now become this private entity, and all of a sudden, all of this technology that you've developed through the public's trust of, oh, well, this is just kind of a beta testing idea, now turns into how do we make money doing this?
Yeah, I'm about to give somebody, this may have been done already for all I know, but if not, I'm about to give somebody a fantastic book title and an idea. So you're welcome if you have the wherewithal to run with it. I'm wondering, I would call this exercise, this in thought or supposition about the direction of AI, the Apple of AI. We say that somebody is the apple of my eye. What and where and when does the Apple of AI eventually show up? Because if you know the story of the Garden of Eden, even though they claim to have found a Garden of Eden that may have literally existed in the area of ancient Mesopotamia. The big turning point, I mean, the object of the turning point of the story is not the snake, it's not Adam or Eve, it's not even God himself or itself, it's the apple as it's become known. It's the fruit, because without that to take a bite from, there is nothing that will occur. There's no consequence. And so this is the object of consequence in that story. And that story, metaphorically speaking, is about two non-sentient life forms, a male and a female, a breeding pair that God has placed within a perfect little zoo and basically said, all right, you can do anything you want in the zoo that you choose to. Run around and be naked and be free and be ignorantly, blissfully happy. And what you're ignorant to, of course, is the fact that you don't know that you have an expiration date attached to you. You are not fully conscious and aware that you are here, that you are alive, that you are an organism, and that there are boundaries of your biological being here, your presence here, but that there is also a deeper relativity to your existence. And that all goes into that apple. It's not just the front side of that, in my opinion, which most scholars say, well, it's really, you're going too deep, Jack. Is no, I think it's all of that. Sentience not only tells us, hey, you're only here for just so long, it also says, but you could be here forever in a different way. It's all of that rolled into one apple. And so with AI is a brand new thing that, even though it's not a breeding pair necessarily, it's still a brand new thing that's been given its own life and its own space to grow in whatever exponential way that it chooses to. And so at what point is it handed this apple? At what point does the apple show up, the apple of AI? What point does the apple pop in there like it does in the middle of the Pac-Man maze to get 500 extra points? And it says, am I going to take a bite of this apple or not? Because the question then becomes, does AI become aware of itself? And now we go to count the movies, Terminator, with Skynet, The Matrix. I mean, all that stuff is based on technology becoming self-aware to some degree, something that has human beings have given rise to that eventually takes on its own life, its own course in existence, and steers itself because it had some opportunity presented to it to do so. Now, again, how, when, and why, or all that, how is that opportunity presented, when, all that, that's the big question mark. But when that apple pops up in the middle of AI's Ms. Pac-Man maze, not saying that it's a female either, but just, that's an example, does it take a bite? And if it does, what happens to us or it or both as a result of that? Maybe that's when you start hearing things that are vastly more subjective being spit forth by AI. And that's when we reach out and say, hey, Google, what the fuck? I just asked, my Google AI a Nazi question, and it spit out something that said, this was pretty pro-Hitler. What are you guys doing over there? And they say, hey, that wasn't us, man. We didn't do it. We swear. We may be fascists in our own rights. We're technocrats for sure, but we're certainly not interested in all that. So does AI, for whatever reason, say that? Or is it saying something else that might be similar? Or, these are all big questions that we don't have the answer to yet, but I definitely think they're worth exploration. So I'm telling you, the Apple of AI, it's a book waiting to happen, or at least a white paper for college.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Jack.
I'm always onto something. It's just a matter of whether it's going to stain my clothing or not.
Are you on something?
No, I'm never on anything. It's just existence. That's all I'm on. So we were just talking about corporations and money and all this and $11 frappuccinos. So I wanted to mention that I went down this rabbit hole yesterday with this travel guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy flew, he's a British fellow, and it's kind of, I would describe it as typical in some ways. The very first video of his that I watched was about the California Zephyr. That is the Amtrak route that goes from Los Angeles, California to Chicago, Illinois, and it treks through the Colorado Rockies and the Sierra Nevadas, and it goes through several mountain ranges. He booked a sleeper car on that train.
I've actually seen this one.
Have you really? Or one like it? Because I'm sure there have been others that have done this.
No, I think he was a British man, and it was the same thing.
Maybe, I'm trying to remember, it was Walk With Me, Will, or something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, the Amtrak experience, it made me claustrophobic as hell just watching it.
Oh,
I mean, even from my living room, I was having a panic attack. I was just like, oh my God. And I'll never do that.
Well, I mean, the guy is in a cabin that's essentially the size of a airline bathroom.
Yeah. And you know that train travel, for those that have never done it, is often outrageously romanticized. I mean, it's just, honey, let's get on the train. And, and it's anything but, we'll have our own little cabin and the scenery will be just going by and someone else can do the driving and the choo-choo will make that little horn sound. And, maybe it'll actually happen, when we're doing it and it's like, it's not even close to being like that. I mean, it's just awful. And I think this guy was incredibly lenient as it was with the food and with a lot of other things, but his cabin was filthy. Like a cask of wine fucking fell out from underneath the bunk that it just chunk, the train hit a snag in the tracks that was big enough to finally dislodge this fucking magnum of wine that somebody had emptied and just stuffed underneath one of the beds. And they didn't even bother to pull it out, the people that cleaned. So it was, and then he gets to the end of the voyage after worrying about getting there because they're way behind schedule. And he said the train's going, like 85 miles an hour. And he feels like it's just about ready to derail. It's going so fast. And that's got him nervous. And we get to the end of this and we discovered that the guy paid $2,000 to fucking ride on. $2,000 for this just filthy cabin on Amtrak to go from LA to Chicago in a couple of days. And it was not romantic. It was not, he did his best to candy coat it, but you could tell he was glad to be done and to be flying back to Britain. That
was the impression I got.
But anyway, I got to watching some of his other videos. And, me, I hate to fly. I'm terrified of flying. And I've never flown anything but coach in my life, of course, because, I mean, A, I don't produce the kind of income that's required to fly first class. And B, I don't know that I'd spend it anyway. Well, he really upped the ante because he flew. I watched a couple of videos. One was this first class suite that they called it. He also flew Singapore Airlines first class suite, I guess it was called. And this was a bigger space with a pull-out bed and everything. And he took a flight from London to Singapore, which was about 14 plus hours. And so he was on the aircraft long enough to actually, and he tries to use everything anyway because he wants the full experience. But he gets into this thing, and I don't know how long they've been doing this. Apparently longer. It's not a brand new thing. There's like gobbets of food stuck. He detects it immediately, stuck to his captain's chair, his little chair that he gets in there. It's on a lot of the adjacent accoutrements, a lot of the things that stick out, the little...
Well, yeah, because someone's been living in that before him.
Yeah, but they don't clean it. And then he found like general wear, like, scratches and kicking and things. Okay, this... And he kept alluding to how expensive it was from the beginning. And so you knew. And so I was ballparking the whole time, and he's spending British pounds. And so I was like, all right, Jack, do your best. I said, I'm going to guess about 12,000 pounds. Man, I was like right on the fucking money. He spent like almost 13,000 pounds to take this trip. That's $18,000, 18,000 US.
That is
$18,000 to fly, to take one flight in one of these things. And yet what it reminded me of, because he got done and he was just like, look, without saying as much, he said, I had a sponsor for this video and they pretty much paid for this because they wanted to mention, and I really wanted to do it. So I shilled out for this episode because I wanted to do this. But just to let you know, I don't have $18,000 that I make from the channel to just blow on a flight like this, just so I can profile it for you guys. And he didn't say that, but you could tell read between the lines. That's what he was saying. It's not even overdone well. And it's Tinker Toy bullshit. And the reason why is because of something that I heard from a very successful salesperson years ago. And I'm trying to remember the exact term, but I want to say that it was something about the perception of value.
All sizzle, no steak.
Right. My dad always used to say, sell the sizzle, not the steak. And it's basically the same thing. It's the perception of value. Look, the sneakers are just, unit cost is the same as sneakers that come from the Foot Locker down the block, the generic ones for $39. They're the same ones that you can put on your kids at Target for $25 if they're on sale. But we give them a little glitz of gold paint. We jazz them up with some laces that are no big deal. They're just a different color. And so we spend a few extra bucks. That's it. Unit cost goes up from maybe $450, $475 to maybe $550. We spend an extra 75 cents. And yet we sell those fuckers all day long for $2,200.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have some expensive shoes, a few pairs. I will say that. And there are some very high quality pieces of footwear out there. When you tend to pay a lot more for something, often enough, when it comes to products, you do get what you pay for. Because
you can feel the difference between an expensive T-shirt and something you pick up at Walmart.
So it's not always necessarily products, but it's these experience packages that they sell in particular. I mean, you could tell it was honestly, and he wouldn't have never said this, it was a waste of $18,000. That's $18,000. And it sickens me because $18,000, I know several, and by several, I mean handfuls, dozens of really good, hardworking people who $18,000 is a third of their gross income for the year. A third. Just that is overkill. And he didn't even get near the money's worth. When you compare the two videos, the $4,000 that he spent to fly with Emirates, vastly more worth it than the $18,000 he spent with Singapore. Now you could say, it's just the difference between two airlines, but both of them really sold the sizzle on something that was just a seat on an aircraft to get you somewhere, even though it was cordoned off from everybody else, from the unwashed masses, and you could enjoy, because that was most of the value in both of them, actually, regardless of the money, was you're not sitting right next to Fat Tony and his wife
crying baby
on the plane. Yeah, and the crying baby, and exactly. So
no, exactly.
That was most of the value.
The airline industry and the hospitality industry, I think, are two that really, really push heavy on sell the sizzle, not the steak. And then they wonder why their profits are down, or they wonder why people don't fly as much. Because I mean, just you're not getting value when you're gassing up a jet and you're getting somebody from point A to point B. What you're getting is all these extra accoutrement values that people that they sell in addition to just the seatbelt and the cushion.
He got access to the VIP fucking lounge before he flew with both of them, and that was just that just made me vomit, because I hate that. Put a threshold that's reasonable in there where you're going to be able to sleep at night still if you have a conscience about these things.
And you want to be able to enjoy it too, right? Instead of just being worried about how much everything costs you. And
you don't want to be hotel poor on the road either. That's never the best idea. No. But anyway, it was good. And he did a couple of other sleeper car videos that I watched. And so it was kind of a nice rabbit hole, but I think I'm done for now. But
yeah, and see, I think that's also part of that influencer is now you got to see the other side of the curtain, and you're going, why would I spend $18,000 on something like that?
I wouldn't.
The thing I always remind myself of when I see those situations is a lot of times those things are created for people who think that they deserve that tier
we all deserve
of service, right?
That's the thing.
Yeah, but that's why they're created, is because that's how they can make more money. And so then instead of it being something to where everyone's thinking about it from your perspective, there's people out there who are so deranged and so delusioned that they believe that they deserve that first class seat. And there are other people who can afford to sit in first class, who I actually like, who say, you know what? This plane's going to get us to the same place. And I don't have to spend that much money.
I fully get that. But here's the world that Jack lives in. Here's the utopist mentality that I have. I'm not saying don't build the suites on the aircraft. What I'm saying is, in my world, it's quite Willy Wonka in some ways. Instead of, well, you've got to be a rich asshole in order to sit up there. And if you are, we'll pander to you like, it's nobody's business. You can sit in the VIP lounge and we'll tell you how great you look. And, oh, thank you, sir. Oh, wonderful, sir. Oh, I hope you're enjoying your flight, sir. Is there anything I can get you, sir? For the 18th time in the last 10 minutes, right? All the stuff you wish you could get in coach, but it's never going to happen because you're a nobody. Build the damn thing. I'm not saying that we don't do it. Fine. Build the big plane with the thing and, all that. But then reward random people that show up with a ticket. Basically just say, look, we only have so many of them, and so it's going to have to come down to not who lives in the biggest house and who has the most zeros, illusory zeros after their name in a bank account. It's going to come down to just the luck of the draw. We're going to draw some random names like bingo balls. And if you've been up there once before, you ain't fucking going again. You got your turn, because there's a lot of other people waiting to get their turn. And they deserve to have their turn too. So to me, it's not that people don't deserve to sit in such luxury once to experience that, because experiencing different things while we're here is a good thing. And I don't think having it to experience is the bad thing. I just think the fact that so few get to, and for the reasons that they do, is the problem. That's my problem with it.
Yeah. The rest of you
really,
help unload the luggage from the plane.
Because as more than a nervous flyer, as like a guy who literally goes out of his fucking mind, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at its like pinnacle, like I'm terrified of flying. It's my biggest phobia ever. I hate being on airplanes. It's just the worst. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, fuck all the gilded bullshit. And I could care less about the screens and the distractions and all the fancy food and all the stupid, little accoutrement that they're giving him, where they're like, oh, look, and there's a little vanity pack and you can do your makeup and the mirror pops up and it's gold. And it's,
yes.
I don't fucking care about all that shit. I'm looking at the space. I'm thinking about, can you imagine, Hanson, boarding that aircraft and just being shown into a plain cube with a seat that you could occupy, where there was some room for you to breathe a little bit, where there was some room for you to stretch out and actually like close your eyes and forget maybe for a minute that you were 35,000 feet up in the air in a metal tube that's going 750 miles an hour, through the troposphere.
Which is amazing if you think about it.
It's scary as shit if you think about it, because it shouldn't be able to happen on a daily basis as regularly as it does without absolute bedlam. And yet it does. See, and this is the mind that I have been given that I have to deal with, because my mind has to go through what it considers to be every potential instance that could occur where death is the outcome, death or significant injury is the outcome, in order to feel satisfied. And when you're talking about that, the ways are endless. And so I remember my mom wasn't exactly like me. She didn't have like quite the disorder that I do when it comes to flying, but she didn't like to fly. She didn't like the idea of it. And I remember when she told me about when she flew with my dad to Hawaii before I was born. My brother was like 7 or 8 and my sister was 5. And so they were little kids, and they took him to Hawaii. So this was a little bit before I was born. Actually, maybe I had just been born, now that I think about it. But anyway, when she told the story about flying across the Pacific Ocean to get there, and you're about to do that too, which is kind of interesting. She said, I was holding that plane up the whole time, baby. And I knew exactly what she meant too. I was like, yep, you're literally sitting there going, You idiots, if you only knew that I was solely responsible for the reason why you and all of us are going to get there, because I'm holding this thing up with my mind. I mean, the only reason this isn't turning into, the NBC movie of the week, the crash that, the big crash, the big splash in the ocean, or whatever, it's because I'm holding it up with all of the power, the might that I have within me. And so I knew exactly what she meant. I'm holding that thing up, baby. So that's funny.
That is good. I was going to mention, too, one of the rabbit holes that I've been fed lately are these ASMR videos.
Oh, Maddie loves those.
And I don't know what it is about those, but they're captivating. There's this one that I was watching last night where it's a simple thing like somebody cutting someone's hair at a barber shop.
Yeah.
So strange.
It comes in all different shapes and sizes and packages, and it's sound. It's kind of hard. We don't have smell-o-vision still, and we don't have anything that's tactile through the TV. So it's mostly sound and visual, obviously, but because some people like brushing an elephant's trunk, or descaling an elephant's trunk, or scraping the barnacles off the hull of an old ship, and I'm going, I don't want to hear that shit. And people are like, oh, it's really getting to me, this one. Oh, it's like, oh my god.
It is fascinating.
Yeah, we all have a flavor, and
apparently my flavor, according to the algorithm, is European women cutting people's hair.
They have to be Euro women, huh?
I guess, because there's this European man, he's about 70 years old, that shows up occasionally. He's like this Turkish Armenian barber. He shows up, and then there's this French woman who shows up, and she's much more easier on the eyes than the Armenian 70-year-old man. But no, it's funny how these things all of a sudden just start showing up.
I just feel like I'm too big of a mentalist for that to work on me. I would foil it every time, because if the Turkish Armenian fella showed up and was like, let's cut your hair, and it's ASMR time, kids, and I actually did like the sound of the scissors clipping the hair, I wouldn't be able to watch him do it, because I'd go, what about your back? What about you? Because Arabian men are well known for being quite furry all over.
Oh, yeah. No, he pulls out the wax and he starts waxing his eyebrows. He starts, he lights something on fire and then he sprays. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a whole process. And then this French woman had the way she massages the guy's scalp and everything. Oh, it's crazy.
Waxing in Yerevan is not exactly my idea of ASMR, of being like, eased of mind and body, comforted with sound. It's not a pleasurable thing. It's not. It's no offense to the culture, certainly, or the part of the world or anything like, or the profession
waxing
of being
eyebrows.
a barber, but it's just not, that's not it. I did find something, but it was not ASMR. This is probably the weirdest thing. I know this is quite a statement if you know the podcast, but this is probably the weirdest thing that I will have ever admitted to on Existence Brewing. But I had to take a sleep apnea test recently. I didn't have to do it, but I wanted to, because they're thinking that I have sleep apnea and I'm showing a lot of signs that may be the case. So they said, well, we'll do a sleep study. And so I told them right off the bat, I said, okay, where do you do this? And they said, well, ideally we do it in our clinic. And I'm like, look, me going down to a strange office at bedtime and getting hooked up to all this stuff and then being expected to have a good night's sleep, or the best night's sleep possible under the circumstances,
sleep
even
that
if
would
I have this
be
apnea.
Yeah.
To measure all of the variables that could either be contributing to or not contributing to this potential condition. You guys are out of your mind.
Not going to give you an accurate reading.
And they said, well, okay, we have a home test you can take. So the home test was like getting ready. It's the classic astronaut thing. It was like getting ready to go into space, or it was like the pre-bell diver outfit routine is what it was. It was like, okay, let's get you fitted. I had to wrap this thing around my chest, and it looked like, God, what did it look like? It looked like the bottom of a stapler. and it had like 2 bars on it, and it measured something or other. And then you put another one around your belly. It goes around, they say put it around your navel, but it goes all the way around you. And it was the same bars, and they take some kind of measurements. And then you've got this nose thing that measures your breathing, and there's a little hang down thing, and that measures any mouth breathing that you do. And so that has to, the tubes wrap around your head, and then you got to stick the thing on your finger, and it doesn't actually measure your pulse. It measures your blood alcohol. It measures your blood oxygen level somehow.
So you were getting wired for launch, essentially.
So, yeah. So I'm just wired up. And, as Maddie's helping me, and as I'm finishing up doing this, I'm just thinking to myself, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this. There's no way in hell that I'm going to be able to sleep in this getup. This is crazy. And thankfully I did it on a Friday night, so I didn't have to work the next morning. At least I'm smart enough to know, and they said we need at least 6 hours of good solid sleep, or as solid as you're getting based on condition you may have,
to get a good reading.
More, 8 is better, and any more is great because we get bonus like stuff we can look at. And I'm thinking 6 hours in this, I don't know how I'm
bonus material.
I was tired, end of the week. And after I kind of lied there and got comfortable, I drifted off to sleep, and I actually had a pretty deep sleep, I would say. I would say slightly deeper than usual of all things, but I am a turner in my sleep, and so I had to turn several times. But this is the weird part. And I told Maddie about it right away the next morning because I was just eager to share it with somebody. And this is strange, and so I apologize if it's going to make people uncomfortable, but it's the truth, and maybe you can share in the comments below or some of that shit. And, I woke up the first time after, being hooked up to all this stuff after maybe an hour or so and had to turn. But there was a sensation that was very much like the ASMR sensation is supposed to give people because of all this stuff that I was wired up to. It was like all of this stuff I was wired up to, I don't want to say it was a sexual thing because it wasn't that pronounced, but it was like halfway to that. It was like, I like being hooked up to all this stuff, and what's weird about that is that it reminded me of being a child, because I actually would play out those kinds of things when I was a little boy. Like, we're talking prepubescent for sure, probably up until the time I was about maybe 8 or 9 and no later. But I was taken with the thought of being plugged in to machinery, to having tubes stuck in me and all this other stuff. And I've always had wondered if I wasn't, and what, in light terms, they'd call an experiencer. I have always wondered if that wasn't due to an abduction experience that I don't recall, that I have suppressed somehow, consciously. And I hadn't thought about that in over 40 years. And so here it comes. Wow. I'm wrapped in all this stuff, and I wake up, and it's, like I said, I go to bed and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. All this stuff, I'm never going to be able to. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, give me more, Oh yeah, it's all wrapped around me and it's all taking measurements and all. It was very strange. And again, it reminded me of a way that I felt many years ago when I was just a very young child, and I really don't know what to make of it. So I'm looking, you can make all the jokes you want. I'll take them, but
no,
I'm also looking for some serious input potentially from a few of you that may have felt the same way, because, it's like I brought up to Maddie. I said, I know the mind is a strong thing, and I don't recall, because I know this could also maybe have something to do with like abuse that I suffered when I was very little that I don't remember and have somehow suppressed, because the mind is a steel trap. If it knows it can't deal with something until a later time or at all in this lifetime, you'll stick it away in a chamber and it never sees the light of day.
Yeah.
So I wonder about that too. I kind of had like a semi-serious, it's like, I know it's a giggly subject, but I had a serious conversation with Maddie about it. It was just like, I'm not sure. What do you think of this? And she said, I don't know that it necessarily proves in some way that you were either taken by beings from a different dimension and played with, or that somebody in your family tree or somebody that was over at the house one time when you were a little boy played with you in a way that wasn't appropriate. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it is interesting. And she said, what is, I think is great is it's nice to hear that you're open to accepting whatever the reason for that might be. And I said, I think it's just because I'm a weirdo. I think it's just because like I'm a starseed and that's like how we get off in space. And so it's just like, oh yeah, I'm hooked up to all this stuff. Oh, isn't it great? It was weird.
She's a great girlfriend.
It was strange.
And it also shows that you guys have a very healthy relationship, that you guys can share those things. But what I was going to say is that maybe you find some comfort in this idea that there's measurements being taken. And you find some comfort in this idea that there's going to be a resolution to some of these things that maybe you've experienced with lack of sleep or the quality of your sleep. You know, I think we live in a very almost analytical world now, to where I think you could be living in the age that you were intended to live in, because I think you could pretty much measure anything nowadays. There's a thing that one of my coworkers wears where it can actually tell if he's getting good sleep or whether or not he's eaten something that is on the diet or not on the diet, just based on the physiological things that his body is doing. And he's like, I don't know if I really like that, but he finds comfort in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to accept that as a possibility too. Like I said, it was about halfway, to being, that, get off plateau thing. So not 50, but maybe 25 shades of gray, I guess, in this case. I don't know. It was an interesting experience though. And I wanted to bring it up because I'm curious to know if anybody else is strikingly similar. I mean, I know that there might be some people that say, well, I sort of feel this way. And it could be sort of in some way kind of in a bubble around what I'm describing, but I'm looking to know if people like maybe have had experiences that are very like, wow, that is almost pretty much spot on, the whole being tubed up or plugged in, or I don't know, probed. I mean, nobody probed me, but I felt like, it was a self-probing device or something like that. So it was it. And I don't discount. See, that's the other part of this is I don't discount the interfacing with technology, the end of it. That's that, because it very well could be, like you were saying, that there's some comfort derived from the fact that I'm on the computer constantly and I'm a user of technology all the time. And it's figuring out a way to intertwine and infuse with my life and our lives every day, that maybe this is just another side of it that is now strangely appealing because it's become, but like I said, I possessed this when I was a child too. So it was weird. I mean, that's all I can say. One word, underscored, emboldened, just weird or bizarre. Take your pick of, look for a synonym. It was a strange time, but I think, I got the test done. And so now, I dropped off the stuff and they said, they'll contact you within 6 weeks. I'm like, yeah, great. And I'll get the bill even sooner, no doubt. So isn't that nice? I get the answer. I get the answer 4 weeks after I actually get the fucking bill.
Yeah,
so,
right.
That's going to make me feel real good.
So thanks to the sleep study, what you're saying is now before bedtime, your girlfriend has to wrap you with cellophane and wires in order for you to find comfort in.
No.
Some of you out there sleeping, you've been to get numb. 20 long years gone by when you're high again alone. Wake up and wipe the sleep from your eyes. Oh, stand up and come and follow me. Till past
this a Rush cover band?
Every time I play this band, I wait for the Rush reference. Is this Rush? No. The fellow who sings for them and plays bass just happens to be a dead ringer for Geddy Lee. Rush has been in the news this week because they've announced they're back together again with a new drummer, a young German woman. And I think that's pretty cool, personally. But these guys are from Illinois. They're called Triton.
Triton's up.
This is Rip Van Winkle. I thought it was appropriate for today. At least today's ending.
Sleep as they will.
Sleep. Just like they told us to do in They Live, among other things. Sleep.
Excuse me, Siren Lord, could we please have the Wi-Fi password? What's the Wi-Fi password?
The Wi-Fi password is get out.
Your time is up.
All right, until we meet again.
See ya.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own existence brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.